And we are now recording. So we're going to hear from the PepsiCo team. I've looked at these slides and they're really impressive visually. So I think we're in for a treat on this one. We're going to hear a really good presentation. So with that, I'm going to bring up the slides and
I just heard
oh, hold it. What did we hear?
it's being slow at the moment, but I'm trying.
And I am trying to get the device to share, and I'm having some difficulty doing so. And I really don't know why. Oh boy. I've never experienced this problem. I don't know. I don't know what the problem is. Please pardon me while I've lost the toolbar completely. So I'll try to deal with this as quick as I can. But I'm pretty mystified here because I just don't have any control of the thing at all. And I do not know what the problem is. I think it may be best to start. Let me. I'm thinking that we may need to turn this off and start over. And I'll just send you the link again. I've never encountered this problem before, but there's virtually no toolbar any longer, and no matter what I try to do, I can't seem to get it back. Hold on and let me see if I can do a Control-Alt-Delete here and see if that'll. Okay, I think the only thing I can do at this point is send you a new Zoom. Oh, hold it now. And there's Bridget trying to get in. She's finally in. And for a minute, I had the, there we go. All right, we've got it back. For those who are watching the recording, I'm very sorry for the delay that you're watching. I can't cut it out, but since we've got the system back, we're going to use it. And Bridget is now with us. Hi, Bridget. Had some difficulty getting here, huh?
Yes, very much so. I apologize.
Okay, well, I'm glad you're here. And at this point then, we should be able to get started. And just as soon as I bring up the PowerPoint, Jeremy, if you'll kick us off, I'd be grateful.
Sure.
Just a second, and we'll do that. And there it is. Believe it or not, we're back to normal. And I have no idea why. Jeremy, it's all yours.
Okay. Well, welcome. Our group chose PepsiCo to study, to understand and strategize for. It was an easy company, but very complex at the same time because of what they're involved in and how many and how global the brand is. So Tiffany Powell, Bridget and Patrick and myself, happy to have you and hope you enjoy the slides here and what we found out about PepsiCo. All right, next slide. All right, just starting off, we got a few content pages just explaining the breakdown of our PowerPoint presentation here. We start out with a background section showing basically what does PepsiCo sell, and it sells a lot more than I thought it did. A historical timeline on how the company got started and a brief snapshot of its financial performance over the past few years. You get into the environmental assessment and capabilities. The environmental assessment looks at basically the environment of other countries and the markets that PepsiCo serves and their economic situations currently and in the past. Then we look at markets, sources of demand from a demographic and population standpoint. Next slide. And we get into an industry analysis. What does it look like in the food and beverage industry? In addition to a broader look at its financial trends. And then you get into our goals. What does the company aim to do? What does the forecast look like for it financially over the next 4 or 5 years? And our strategy, how are we going to get there? What steps is the company going to take to reach those goals? And then the implementation, the steps, the projects and the programs that are put in place or will be put in place to achieve solid financial performance and to reach new markets.
These are PepsiCo's business units, especially back from 2017, and also giving us the percentages of each one of them, especially in Frito-Lay North America and North America Beverages. They average out the highest, and surprisingly, the lowest is Quaker Foods in North America, which is almost 4%. But yeah.
The mix of net revenue is made up of 54% food and 46% beverages. Next slide.
This is it's good, better, fun for you. It was done by Miss Nguyi, that was the CEO. Developed these 3 different ideas trying to increase PepsiCo. Next slide.
And PepsiCo's response to the desire for more healthful alternatives.
Mm-hmm.
PepsiCo products, they focus on making their products more enjoyable and nutritional. Their product sustainability goals are to reduce added sugars, saturated fats, and sodium. And they do this through a process of reformulation. Next slide.
Okay, this is just showing a brief mix of its products from the beverage side. Obviously, there's items here that associated with PepsiCo, Pepsi, Mountain Dew. They've also acquired Tropicana, Gatorade, which is huge, especially in athletics. And then it's water, it's Aquafina. Then it also has a partnership with Starbucks, Naked Juice, Propel, Life Water. So it's got a very broad beverage product line. Next slide.
We even went into PepsiCo's nutritional products for beverages, such as Pure Life Bubbly, Gatorade, as was mentioned, as well as Aquafina, Kavita, One, and Propel, as well as Life Water. Next slide.
So this is another brief list here of its beverage side, or I'm sorry, its food side, its snack foods, and it's broad as well. Lay's and Doritos. The hummus that's in my refrigerator right now, I didn't know it was associated with PepsiCo, but it is. And then Cheetos and Fritos, and you get it for everything from your salty, snack potato chips to items that are have a lot more, they're a lot healthier for you. Next slide.
Okay. A 15-second commercial. This was my client when I was a consultant, internal consultant to PepsiCo. When the corporation was shortly after the corporation was formed by the merger of PepsiCo and Frito-Lay, I ended up on the staff of the team that helped to bring Frito-Lay into the corporation and fold it in and make it a single corporation. But I spent a lot of time in Dallas, Texas, working with Frito, and I can tell you that the most delightful experience in the world is being in a Frito-Lay plant and eating a Frito when it comes right out of the oven on a conveyor. You got to wait a couple minutes or you'll burn your fingers, but after that, they're really good when they're warm. I'll return you now to your own program.
This is our nutritional products for PepsiCo, such as Quaker Oats, Bear Snacks, and even Off the Eaten Path. Some of the products have nuts, fruits, vegetables, and more nutritional value than the regular products that PepsiCo sells. Next.
This is the top 10 most sold products at PepsiCo's. We've got Quaker Oats, Doritos, Tropicana, Diet Pepsi, Lay's potato chips, and of course, #1 is Pepsi Cola. Next slide.
Somebody's got a radio or TV on in the background. If you're not speaking, it might be a good idea to put your mute button on. It may not be anybody here. It may be somebody whose picture isn't on the screen, but I'm sure you can hear it. There's some sort of background noise.
Here's our good for you products, and there's much more even here, especially as Quaker Oats, hummus, and Aquafina. These are healthy for you products.
Right.
Next slide. Better for you. These products such as Smart Food popcorn, Diet Pepsi, Pepsi Cola, 0 calorie, Lipton tea, and Sun Chips. These are all diet, low calorie foods, as well as more. Fun for you, also known as bad for you, is considered as junk food, but is still very delicious.
Not nutritious, delicious.
Not nutritious, but highly favored among consumers for the great taste, such as Doritos, Cheetos, Lay's, and everything.
Okay. Better for you and good for you products are an increasing percentage of PepsiCo's total portfolio. In 2006, it was roughly 38%, and then it went up to 50% in 2017. So it's really increased. Next slide.
Bridget, when you came on, that's when we could hear the noise in the background. Is there something playing in the background in your house? Maybe kids watching TV?
My computer.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
okay, well, at least we know where it's coming from.
All right, so here, just kind of starting out with a bullet point list, I guess, for the history of the company and its major moves throughout the history. So in 1965, that's when the company became PepsiCo, when it was founded, and it joined with Frito-Lay. Moving on down, showing its global brand, it moved into India, which was a big deal and is a big deal because of the future of the economy of India and what it could do for PepsiCo. In 1990, a large cookie company from Mexico, Gamesa, was acquired. In 1992, Aquafina was acquired. Next slide. Beginning in 95, you see a lot of moves made in marketing and advertisements. Tostitos, Lay's was introduced to 20 new markets around the globe in 98. There was the 100th anniversary of Pepsi Cola, along with Tropicana acquisition. Sobe Life Water in 2000. Miss Nuyi, Indra Nuyi, was announced as the new CEO in 2006. And that started a road of several acquisitions and moves internationally that has kind of paved the way for where Pepsi is now. Naked Juice also in that same year, and Doritos launches a Super Bowl contest, once again reaching out to the public. Then again in 2025, or I'm sorry, in 2016, it launched a 2025 sustainability plan, which speaks to the company being much more than just a producer of goods for consumption. And Kavita, which is a more healthy drink, going along with its good for you, was acquired.
We have some turning points in the creation of PepsiCo. From 1893 to 1932, we have Brad's Drink, which was the first development, and it was served out of his pharmacy in 1893. And the company had sort of a hard time at first. The Great Depression, it went bankrupt. We finally have, let's see, it was purchased by Roy McGargale in 1923. Then the Great Depression hit. Next slide, please. And we have further turning points in the creation of PepsiCo from 1932 to 1965. At this time, we also have H.W. Lay. He's also developing his own line of products and snacks, which he started selling in 1937. Loft Candies actually bought Pepsi Cola in 1939, and they suffered hard financial times, and they sued Guth for control of Pepsi. And then in 1941, Pepsi's renamed Pepsi Cola Company. Of course, they won the lawsuit and took control of Pepsi. And let's see, the biggest thing in 1965 was Pepsi Cola merged with Frito-Lay, creating PepsiCo, and PepsiCo was born.
That was the birth of the company as it is today.
That's correct. And this is just a slide of humble beginnings. The Brad Ham, he developed the first drink out of his pharmacy in Newbern, North Carolina. So this is a North Carolina product. Next slide, please. And of course, referencing the former slide, it did go bankrupt in 1923 when he started the company because of sugar prices, post-war sugar prices. And then it was purchased again by Roy McGargale in 1923. And the Depression moved Pepsi Cola into bankruptcy once again. So twice it went into bankruptcy. So it had a hard time beginning. Next slide. Charles Guth purchased Pepsi Cola in 1931. He was president of Loft Candies. And he started serving this out of his soda fountains, and also used research and development from Loft candy stores to sort of tweak the formula the way he wanted it. Next slide, please. And during this time, he really saved Pepsi Cola by offering a larger 12-ounce bottle, which boost sales because the other competitors were using the same 6-ounce bottle. So really that saved Pepsi Cola, which was struggling at the time. Next slide.
I'll tell you a quick little story. Do you know how they could offer a 12-ounce bottle for the same price as a 6-ounce bottle? Well, the Pepsi Cola went to the grocery stores in the old days. You used to, if you remember, your grandma used to take her used bottles back to the grocery store and get her deposit back, right? And you get a nickel for the bottle. I remember my grandma used to do that. Pepsi Cola went around and picked up those bottles, those returned bottles, and they washed them and filled them with Pepsi Cola. And so their cost for their bottles was essentially zero. And that's how they could get their costs down so low. And they were famous for their jingle, which went like this. Pepsi Cola hits the spot, 12 full ounces, that's a lot. Twice as much for a nickel, too. Pepsi Cola is the one for you. Nickel, 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 nickel. And that was the very first jingle, the very first theme song on media. It was on the radio, and it was the first time that a company used music to promote their product in an advertisement.
Well, the company started moving along fairly well, and all of a sudden it faced Loft faced financial crisis, and so they decided to sue Guth for Pepsi Cola, since basically Guth had used Loft finances to sort of propel Pepsi, and they did win the lawsuit. Next slide, please. And during all this time, in the background, Frito was beginning in 1932 by C.E. Doolin, and he was preparing corn chips in his family's kitchen, and they decided to name the product Fritos. Next slide, please. And in 1938, H.W. Lay created his company, and he was selling products from his 1928 Ford Model A. Next slide, please. And finally, in 1961, H.W. Lay and Frito Company merged to form Frito-Lay.
Yeah.
And finally, we have PepsiCo after all this. And in 1965, CEO Don Kendall and Frito-Lay CEO Herman Lay proposed a deal written on back of a napkin to merge the two companies, forming what we know as today's PepsiCo.
To tell you how old I am, I went to work for Don Kendall. He was CEO of PepsiCo when I was there.
And these are just some early products that were first established. I do see a little bit of diversification from our Diet Pepsi Cola in 1964, moved into a sort of a health food sort of environment. Next slide, please. And these were brands of the 1990s. We have more diversification, Aquafina, Tropicana, Starbucks joint venture, Lipton joint venture.
Whoops.
And
Sorry.
we have brands of the 21st century. And again, we're seeing more diversification, more into healthier choices. We have Pepsi Max with 0 calories, Naked Juice. We have sparkling Propel electric water with vitamins. Next slide, please. And now we're going to talk a little bit about some of our CEOs during this period. The first one we're going to talk about is Donald M. Kendall. And he oversaw the Pepsi and Frito-Lay merger, creating PepsiCo. And he also moved us into the Soviet market by becoming the first American consumer product to be made in the Soviet Union. And also into China in 1970. And during this time, which was not really a good thing, he acquired Pizza Hut, Taco Bell, which are no longer owned by PepsiCo, but they purchased those two fast food restaurants to move into the fast food business. Next slide, please.
If you look at the diamond in the center on the left, you'll see some interesting pictures. The guy in the white suit is Kendall, but look at the guy in the middle. He looks very worried, doesn't he? That's Richard Nixon. He said, "Why, don't you like it?" And of course, the guy on the left is Nikita Khrushchev. It looks like Nixon is very concerned about how this is going to work out.
And then in 1986 to 1996, we have Wayne D. Calloway. And he was also head of Frito-Lay before becoming CEO of PepsiCo. And he went into further diversification by purchasing Kentucky Fried Chicken. And also Pepsi entered India during this time and also acquired Walker's Crisp from the United Kingdom and Aquafina, Lipton Tea Partnership, Starbucks Partnership. Next slide. And we have Roger Enrico, CEO 1996-2001, and he decided to spin off Kentucky Fried Chicken, Taco Bell, and Pizza Hut and concentrate mainly on the beverage and snack food, which they were into and was their market. We have Steve.
Rennemood.
Yeah, thank you. From 2001 to 2006, and Sierra Mist was launched, and he also opened Frito-Lay, the first green distribution center. Next slide. And this is probably the star, I guess, of our star CEO of PepsiCo. She really diversified and moved us into the health industry. She acquired Wim Bill Dan in 2010, which is a leading product company in Russia for dairy products. And let's see, she also acquired, and I can't say this word.
That juice company in Russia.
Thank you. And so she really moved us into more healthier, nutritional type diversification. Also got us away from the carbonated beverages because there was a trend to moving away from those type items. And I think she's really probably moved PepsiCo and PepsiCo into a better era. Next slide.
For sure. You can see the little drinks down at the bottom. They're not little though, but they're all healthy. Kavita, Stacy's Pita Chips. She's the one that took PepsiCo into the healthy foods, recognizing that there was a concern about unhealthy foods at that time. So she's an MBA from Yale. She was born in India, educated undergraduate in India, had a consulting career in strategy, and eventually joined PepsiCo as the VP for strategic planning, which has always been an inspiration to those of us in the strategic planning profession. But aside from that, Mrs. Newey was simply a very brilliant lady who frankly competed circles around her male adversaries. She's a sort of a standard for advancement of women in management.
And our present CEO is Ramon LaGuarta, and he has moved us into the soda stream he acquired, which is a home soda creation type product, Bear Snacks, and he's also moved us into Pioneer Foods, which is a South African snack beverage company, or leading food and snack beverage company. So let's see, and he also says that beverages and snacks will be made with renewable energy by 2020. So.
Okay. PepsiCo's mission. Mr. Ramon LaGuarta has embraced a new corporate mission. They strive to create more smiles with every sip and every bite. Next slide.
Okay, getting started with Abel's model here. First, we're going to address who's being satisfied by PepsiCo. Younger generations are major contributors. College students, young kids with the Pepsis and the snacks, working populations, people going from meeting to meeting and trying to bridge meals, and long days at work, athletes, we talked about Gatorade, and of course, those that are more interested in healthy options. PepsiCo has moved into having those healthier choices for its consumers. Next slide. Unmet needs of Abel's model. Number one being hunger. It has a presence in 200 countries across the world and provides a wide range of affordable snack and beverage options. We talked about nutrition, obesity being a major health issue in this country especially. And with the nutritious options, people have the choice to do better and eat better. And also PepsiCo has partnered with its suppliers, especially its suppliers of raw materials from the farm where the bare necessary ingredients are grown, and has helped those local farmers improve their yields and teaching them techniques, and invested so that it can get the quality ingredients it wants, but at the same time improving the lives of those who are supplying them. Next slide.
So this has the countries where Pepsi sells more products than Coke. And if you notice, India is one of those. Next slide.
Okay, I thought you wanted me to switch. You want to flip the slide?
Next slide.
Okay.
All right. Continuing with Abel's model and its distinctive competencies, how's PepsiCo able to satisfy the needs? Well, it invests in its workforce. It believes in sustainability and its practices, reduce the environmental footprint and improved use of water and emissions from its factories and its manufacturing facilities. It invests in research and development, understanding what markets want and what forecasts look like. And PepsiCo considers itself to be consumer-centered. It responds to the changes and understands that change is going to happen, and they focus on being ahead of it and doing a lot of analytics based on consumer behaviors.
Yeah, what Derek Abel had in mind here was to go through these 3 steps. First, identify just what segment of the population or market the firm wants to serve, and then second, what is it that market segment isn't satisfied with? What are the unmet needs? Once you know that, then the question is, what does it take to be a winner? And so Abel asked this question, which really is the pivot point, and that is, what kind of competences does a company, any company, not just the one we're talking about, but what does a company have to be able to do to distinctively, that is, to set itself apart with its competences in order to meet those needs? Of course, that's always the hard part, is how do you develop those competences? But that's the hard part of Abel's model, is where do you come up with the capabilities that will set you apart by solving a problem for your customers that hasn't been solved before. Okay.
PepsiCo's vision, winning with purpose. Under Ramon Laguardia's leadership, he's adopted a new vision. They desire to be the global leader in convenient foods and beverages by winning with purpose. Winning with purpose reflects their goal. Goal to win sustainably in the marketplace and place purpose into all areas of their business. Next slide.
Okay.
PepsiCo aspires to become more consumer-centric and faster, stronger, better, stronger by transforming their capabilities and culture, and better by continuing to integrate their purpose into their business strategy. Next slide.
Okay, wrapping up the background section, I'm just going to look at a brief financial snapshot, if you will, of the past couple years, looking at sales and return on invested capital. You can go to the next slide.
Yeah.
All right, so this is kind of a few tables just showing a comparison of with rivals, with Coca-Cola and Mondelez, showing the performance and these financial ratios over 2019 and 2020. And in some aspects, PepsiCo is doing really well compared to its rivals, and in some areas are a little bit more concerning than others, and we'll get to that. Next slide. So again, we're just a graphic, a visual of sales on the left and leverage on the right. Obviously, it's doing really well in sales. The other two companies are a little bit different in their makeup. PepsiCo is a food and beverage company, so that definitely helps catapult sales, and definitely its diversification. Its leverage is higher, and we'll talk more about leverage in just a second. Next slide. All right, and here we have a return on invested capital, and then on the right we have ROE. So as you see in 2019 with return on invested capital, PepsiCo was lagging, but even in a pandemic year, it's made smart decisions, and it's allowed itself to actually pull back ahead in terms of ROI in front of Coca-Cola. Next slide.
One of the things that people analysts tend to be impressed by PepsiCo for is the fact that its operating profit margin is lower than Coca-Cola's, but its rate of return on invested capital last year, you can see, was higher than Coke's, and its return on equity is higher than Coke's. So how does it do that with a lower profit margin? And as Jeremy mentioned, I think we're going to hear more about why PepsiCo's profit margin is lower than Coke's, and so I won't steal his thunder, and I'll let him describe it when the time comes. But it's perfectly understandable. But how does a company with that much lower operating profit margin get such a high rate of return on investment and equity? And it turns out that it's because it turns its assets a lot faster than Coke. Pepsi is a very efficient manager of resources.
All right, so we talked about Pepsi leading the way in sales. And although leverage is high, we have extremely low interest rates right now, which makes it, okay to borrow a large amount of money. It has healthy cash flows, allows it to cover its interest. And we talked about it responding during 2020 in terms of ROI. And in terms of ROE, it shows its ability to generate profit without changing its input as far as invested capital. Next slide.
PepsiCo is a part of the consumer goods sector. It's a food and beverage producer. We're going to be looking now at the macroeconomic portion, the gross domestic product, inflation, consumer price index, and unemployment. Next slide. Economic trends. First of all, I'm going to explain purchase power parity. This allows companies to compare economic productivity and standards of living between countries. It equalizes the purchasing power of countries by eliminating price difference between countries. And we're going to use that to calculate GDP, and which measures the monetary value of all value of goods and services produced during a period of time. And there's some little, as I was going to say, as real GDP rises, more is being produced. It's a measurement of standard of living in a country, and it also measures the nation's economy. Is it growing or shrinking? Next slide, please. The gross domestic product really answers the question, how healthy are the country's economies where PepsiCo is operating? A healthy economy is an expanding economy with a positive growth rate. Next slide, please. The first slide we're going to look at, it's kind of hard to see in some areas. We're comparing economic growth of our major target areas of PepsiCo. We do see that China, of course, has the most economic growth trending through 2025. The flat growth is in Russia, and let's see, Brazil is sort of slow too. Mexico, we do see a scene 5. That's 5 countries of Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, Thailand, and Vietnam. And they are also a target area to look for also as they continue to grow. Next slide. And our global economy is changing. The USA always had pride in being number 1 since 1871, and unfortunately we're losing that now. And China has become the world's largest economy, and we are now number 2. We can also expect to possibly become number 3 by 2050 as India's GDP continues to grow. And we can look at the graphics here and see the projections. Of course, China continues to grow. The United States sort of regresses a little bit. It doesn't grow quite as fast as what China's growing. We also see India, which is doing a major growth spurt by 2025. In our developing nations, we are looking at the economy of the future, which is India, as it pulls away from the other countries and developing a GDP. China, of course, is the economy of the present, and it has passed the United States and will continue to do so for a while anyway, until India catches up with it. Next slide. Next, we're going to look at the gross domestic product per capita, and this is the amount of economic production to each citizen. It's also a measure of national wealth and economic wealth. And as GDP increases, there'll be greater purchasing power and more consumption, which is good for PepsiCo to be in countries such as this.
I like your graphic here to show GDP to the population. And although it's not an exact measure, it is an indicator of wealth and consumption potential. So if this indicator is rising, then the likelihood of greater consumer spending also exists. So again, you don't want to take the numbers that you see and draw the conclusion that the average consumer spends what GDP per capita is. But the trend in GDP per capita is a real good indicator of consumption potential, the likelihood that people are going to spend more or less.
When we do touch into population here, that is an important part of GDP per capita. And we are seeing some flat lines among most of the targeted areas, except for India and China, as you can see in the second graph. China's leveling off by 2025, and India is starting to pass China. China has undergone for several years the one-child policy, which ultimately has probably hurt them. And let's see. Population is important because, for one thing, we need to have labor available for growth, and labor is one of the factors of production. And of course, India will become a major market for PepsiCo, I think, in the future.
Okay, so this looks at more of the numbers of the population. You've got China and India in the billions, and then the rest more in the millions. And China and India are right there. India will soon definitely surpass China in the near future. Next slide.
And here we're just looking at some population percentages. As we can see, India and China pretty much is a major part of the world's population. at this point, which of course is good for PepsiCo to be in these markets because that's where most of the people are. Next slide. And this is just indicating our gross domestic product per capita. Our next slide will show us some things going on with that. As you can tell, the United States is sort of slowing up. We don't see steep increases.
Patrick,
Yes,
can I please interrupt you for just a
yes,
second?
sir.
I have never seen a nicer set of GDP per capita panels than the ones that you've put together and that
Thank
you're
you.
going to show us. These are just handsome, and I want to single you out and say so. This
Thank
is
you.
just gorgeous work. The other thing I hope you'll do is point out the companies that have, or the countries that have increasing trends as opposed to flat, because there are a couple ones that are a little surprising. But what I love about these charts is that the trends are so immediately obvious. This is gorgeous work.
Thank
And
you.
I want to steal these from you.
You can
And I
have
want to
them.
use them in my classes. Of course, to do
free.
that, I have to have your permission.
Oh yeah, definitely
But
take them.
I'll be glad to buy you dinner or something. But
Okay, all right, we'll do it.
okay, go ahead. This is gorgeous stuff.
Thank you. Well, China, of course, we can look at them and see the major increase right on through 2025. Of course, I said like the United States, we are seeing increases, but just not what we're seeing with China. Brazil, they've had some issues. They've been suffering from high unemployment, some high inflation. So we've kind of seen some up and down things going on with them. Not really sure how they're going to play out. But they are seeing some increases. India, of course, we see growth there. Next slide, please. And here you see the Asian companies, Asian countries, and tremendous growth in those areas, which is a good place for PepsiCo to be in the future as they continue to grow. Mexico, they've had some ups and downs, but they are starting to trend back up.
Boy, they sure can.
Russia, they've had some issues in the past also. Slow trending up. The European Union up for the most part.
Sort of slow up. Look at Russia and look at Brazil. See the similarity? Okay. What's really interesting here is that these are countries that have, all the raw material, all the physical resources for much faster growth, but because of political dissension and their internal disorganization, they just haven't reached critical mass, and analysts get very interested in that. We can see that India has really been growing rapidly. If we calculated growth rates, we'd see that India's growth rates really been very unusually fast, except for the downturn during the big financial crisis, and that showed, didn't it? And then you look at the countries that are big but not growing rapidly. They're mature, such as the U.S. and surprisingly, Europe, when we look at it from a consolidated position, does have some growth potential. You sure wouldn't know it in the way their economies behave, at least the big ones. But these graphs sort of wipe away the chaff and show us the big picture and the trends. I've never seen a graph of Mexico like this before. And when I saw this graph of Mexico, I was just stunned because I guess I always knew there was volatility there, but this really shows it. This is a very revealing chart. I'll shut up now.
You're good. And we just have more comparisons here. I really wanted to show, really with the colorization on the slide, USA and China, the gross domestic per capita, how that red is creeping into that blue. Red for China and blue for the United States. And that's really scary. Next slide, please.
Oh, okay. I'm impressed by your chart on the upper left, because now we can see the ASEAN countries, which you pointed out earlier as growing rapidly. That's there are 10 countries in that group, but the IMF reports only 5 of them. But these are the Southeast Asian nations such as Indonesia, Philippines, Malaysia,
Philippines, Thailand,
Vietnam.
and Vietnam.
Yeah, and it's just obvious that there's something going on in that part of the world, and it's not all China. So if you're PepsiCo, from a marketing perspective, you're getting a pretty clear message here of where you have to be.
And now we're going to talk about our favorite term, inflation, that decreases the purchasing power of a nation's currency. So it takes more money to purchase the same product, simply. And the following slides, we're going to review some of PepsiCo's major markets and how their inflation rates are in the markets where they're in. The United States, we've had some ups and downs over the years. We see a trending of leveling off. Even after COVID, I think we're going to level off. Russia has some very high inflation rates, but I'm not so sure if the economic sanctions from the United States didn't have something to do with some of that. But we do see that leveling off also. Brazil, it's still at 2%, leveling off. Mexico is leveling off at 3%.
Okay.
The Asian countries, they're leveling off. India. The trend here on everything, it seems to be that the inflation rates are leveling off for future trends. And this is just a slide showing everything. And as you can see clearly, the inflation rates have decreased over the past few years and are leveling off through 2025.
Where do you see the inflation rate the highest?
Well, we see it in Brazil.
Careful.
India.
Yeah.
India, I see.
Yeah. And as we go through the presentation, we'll see alternative locations for short-term and long-term investment. India is probably a target for long-term investment, but India presents some real serious difficulties in the short term. And inflation, of course, makes it difficult for people, everyday people, to afford discretionary items, little luxuries. If they're having trouble buying food and beverage, food and gasoline and shelter and clothing, they may not be able to buy the little things that you and I take almost for granted.
And our consumer price index, we see that India has the highest consumer price index.
Yeah.
And that's the measurement of change in the average cost of prices over time. And it's really out of control in India at this point. And now we're going to talk about unemployment. And that's another favorite. In the United States, of course, unemployment has been up and down. It's been up during the COVID, of course, and it's starting to level off again. China has remained relatively flat for many years and continues to trend doing so. Russia had a very high unemployment rate earlier in the decade. That's slowly trending down. Mexico is the same way. It's been up and down like the United States. Brazil is horrible with double digit in unemployment, and it's still having trouble with that. The Euro area trending downward. And then the other slide is just one showing everything.
Oh, okay.
And now we're going to give you a little summary of what we have discovered for PepsiCo for their areas. Gross domestic product, GDP, which is a measurement of economic growth, and it demonstrates that growing economies in all the domestic and foreign markets, which is good. While Mexico and Russian economies remain strong, their economic growth projects to be smaller. Of course, China continues to outpace while India continues to close the gap. The gross domestic product per capita, the United States, Brazil, Mexico, and Russia experienced slight to moderate growth. China, India, European nation, and the Asian countries, they continue to project substantial growth. Population growth remains flat for most of the foreign markets, with the exception of China and India, of course. And inflation is projected to remain relatively low, except for Brazil, who is still experiencing double-digit inflation. Unemployment remains level and at low levels, except for Brazil again, which is in the double-digit unemployment. And PepsiCo should continue to see revenue increases in both foreign and domestic markets, indicated by growing populations, especially of India and China.
So now we're going to look at the markets, sources of demand. With this, the net revenue is just showing that they're basically, it's all about the same. They kind of have a growth problem. PepsiCo does. Next slide.
Here are the demographics for who is shopping for Pepsi and what are they like. Our targets market is 18 to 34, and our majority of the PepsiCo shoppers make less than $20,000. Next slide.
I'm trying. Okay.
This chart shows the majority of what time of day, when do PepsiCo shoppers make their purchases. And as you can see, the majority is during the afternoon or evening. This may be due to, that's when the consumers go shopping for that week, or they're getting just off work to go home and, help their children with their homework or need an extra pick-me-up, for instance. Next slide.
Okay. So China's population, the growth rate between 2000 and 2020 was at 11%. Their population distribution by broad age group is right there at, looks like 16 to 59 years, 64%. Next slide. Oh, can we go back one? Can we go back one, please? China. Yeah. Okay. A lot of China's issues with their population is mainly due to they have the one-child policy. This was put in place in 1979 over the fear of overpopulation, but that has since been ended in 2015. And you can go ahead to the next one. India is growing a lot more, 31% their growth rate from 2000 to 2020. And then their age distribution is increased right there at the 15 to 64 years of age. So they have talked about in doing the national two-child policy like China did, but it has not been passed. But with their economy, they can support a growth population. Next slide. Next slide, please.
So, I'm sorry, I was muted. We saw earlier that China's population over this decade grew 11%. Over 10 years, that's not meteoric growth. So as Jeremy mentioned, with the one-child policy and cultural issues, growth has sort of slowed down and will actually reverse in China. But look at the difference here between 11% and 31%. That's quite a difference, isn't it? Okay, you want to advance it beyond here now? Yep. There.
Okay. So here we're looking at urban versus rural. 35% of population in India is urban, 65% rural areas. This is important because of the differences between the way people live versus, country versus city. They have different lifestyles, different likes and dislikes. So that plays a role in their food and beverage choices. Next slide. The United States is at 17% from 2000 to 2020. Their age distribution from 2009 to 2019 is decreased a little bit in the 15 to 64 year range. And the population for 65 years, the percentage has increased. And some of that is due to the baby boomers. A lot of them are crossing over into the 65 years of age and older group.
So what does this say to PepsiCo, Bridget? These are interesting charts, but does PepsiCo take a particular meaning from these data?
Well, it's like for this one, for instance, it's opening up a new market for them to focus on probably the older generation.
Yeah, so their advertising and their promotions. And frankly, I'm an old guy. So what I like to eat and my dietary habits are probably a little different from yours.
Right.
You're not an old guy. So you and I probably prefer different things and different, snack foods and beverages. And so by looking at these trends, PepsiCo gets some idea about where their marketing priorities need to be.
Right. The number of older adults is increasing rapidly relative to children. And this is just showing a better example of that. From 2020 to 2060, it's increasing. So again, it's opened up another market segment for them to focus on. Next slide. Brazil is doing a little bit better than some of the other countries. They're at 22% from growth rate. Their age distribution, it's increasing a little bit in the middle section, 15 to 64 years of age. Decrease a little bit in the 0 to 14. Next slide, please. And Russia is 0.35%. So that's a lot different compared to the others. We've got the 66.75% for 15 to 64. And let's see.
When we look at the 15 to 64-year-old population, that's the population that buys stuff, right? And this graph looks much different from all the others. When we start out, 72% of the population is in that prime spending group. But by the time we get over to the right side, it's down to 66. So we've got a sort of a compression of the prime buying population. And among other things, from your population chart, we can see the population's not growing. It's about 144 million people, and it's been there for a long time. And what's happening is that the younger people are moving out of Russia, and of course the birth rate is low. So Russia's there are a lot of reasons for this, and we won't get into them, but Russia's economy is in a funk, and it's not just because of the dispute with the United States. There's something fundamentally going on there that just isn't as robust as in other countries such as China. And look at that.
Yep. This just shows the population growth from 2009 to 2019, and it's really decreased. A lot of that is due to the bad economy. Older generation is increasing. more people are passing away than having babies. So it's really hurting them.
Yeah. And none of these bars, this shows kind of like some bars larger than others, but look at the values of 1/5 of 1%, 2/10 of 1%. That's not rapid. And yet even that would have been considered fast growth for Russia in recent years. So Russia's not on the go.
I've got Mexico. Their growth rate from 2000 to 2020 was at 30%. So a lot better than Russia. And then their urban versus rural, 84% in urban, 16% in rural. So again, different lifestyles, different preferences or whatnot for city versus country. The European Union and ASEAN 5, 0.06 for European Union and 0.29% for ASEAN 5. Next slide.
Next slide.
Please.
Okay.
And this shows a better comparison of them all. You can see that India is definitely going to surpass China. And then down at near the end, we've got let's see, European Union and United States is kind of steady. And then down at the very bottom, we've got Mexico and Russia. And Mexico will definitely surpass Russia soon.
We can see that the ASEAN group, that Association of Southeast Asian Nations, looks like a comer, doesn't it? It's higher than Europe, it's higher than the US, and its growth potentials appear to be higher than either the US or the European Union too. So again, we've got China and India, which are, for lack of a better term, Eastern countries. And then we have this group of Southeast Asian nations in, again, the Eastern Hemisphere. So we got a suggestion of where growth is going to be in the future.
Demographic summary. PepsiCo's target market is between the ages of 18 and 34. And a lot of those, that is where a lot of the population is. Any shifts, whether age, population, where they live, urban versus rural areas, will change the demand for their products. China's population, although it is much higher than the others, it will soon be surpassed by India. And the number of older adults is increasing rapidly relative to children. So that's creating a new market segment. Next slide. PepsiCo's customers, where can you find them, or where can you find their products? Got food service customers, grocery stores, drugstores, convenience stores. Next slide. So the sales growth of fastest growing food and grocery retailers. Got Amazon. This number is the very top largest, which is a online company. Dollar Tree, Albertsons. E-commerce is increasing, but 1% of total for the food and beverage segment, 1% of total market revenue will be generated through online sales by 2023. So there is still a demand for in-person purchases versus online.
Yeah.
Okay. Top supermarket retailers. I got Kroger, Albertsons, and then you've got the natural organic supermarket growth. And that has really increased. So there is a demand for the more good for you, better for you products. Wholesale foods, Trader Joe's. Next slide. Major restaurants that serve Pepsi versus Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola is being sold in a lot of places compared to Pepsi, but Pepsi is okay with that. Next slide, please. U.S. per capita consumption of bottled water surpassed soda the first time in 2016. So more people were drinking water, consuming water versus soda. Next slide.
I think this is a pretty important slide for those of you who are interested in the kind of questions that would appear on a test. This is just a natural, isn't it? Because it's a major shift in consumption patterns. You know, for years and years, we were all familiar with and sort of used to Coke and Pepsi and soft drinks, but those days are over. Bottled water.
Purchase consideration for Pepsi specifically. When asked what they would choose, if it would be Pepsi or not, it's decreased over the years. So people are choosing different products.
Well, we're
Next
not
slide.
choosing Pepsi. And that's because Pepsi has decided to concentrate on other markets
Right.
with other products, right?
Right.
So who, if they're not choosing Pepsi, what are they choosing?
Coca-Cola.
Coke, yeah, yeah. And I hope when we get the strategy, you guys are going to explain that.
America's beverages of choice. Coffee is pretty big, but you've got 39.5 gallons of carbonated beverages, 34% of tea, or gallons of tea, and 33.5 gallons of water. So that is increasing.
Okay.
Next slide. The volume of the carbonated beverages market in India from 2011 to 2016. So it has increased. The consumption of soft drinks was 44 bottles per capita in 2016, but it's expected to almost double to 84 by 2021. So there is a demand there.
So India is not typical of the more developed countries like the US and Europe, where we see the consumption of carbonated beverages declining. We see that in some underdeveloped or emerging nations, such as India, some countries in South America, we see increasing consumption of carbonated beverages. And that's probably because folks simply have not been educated about the health problems or the health impacts of carbonated beverages.
Per capita consumption of carbonated soft drinks in 2019 in the 10 most populated countries worldwide, got Mexico right above the United States, consuming more carbonated soft drinks. Why is Mexico so high and India so low? India has a better economy compared to Mexico. They can afford to consume more healthier choices. In Mexico, kids are fed carbonated drinks starting out anywhere from 0 to 6 months of age, so they're addicted right from the beginning. Carbonated beverages has become a real health problem for Mexico as well as the United States. Next slide. Health concerns of consuming carbonated beverages. You've got osteoporosis. There haven't found any nutritional value. Causes weight gain, obesity, diabetes, kidney damage, tooth decay. Next slide. Studies have shown that it can lead to osteoporosis. These types of drinks block nutrient absorption and promote loss of calcium from the body. 1 in 2 women and up to 1 in 4 men over the age of 50 will break a bone due to osteoporosis. So that is a huge problem there. Prevalence of obesity. You've got the highest was in men between the ages of 40 to 59 at 46.4%. And then
So we see a relationship between consumption of carbonated beverages, which is so high in the US and Mexico, and obesity and osteoporosis, which also are very high in those two countries. And there's probably a relationship there.
diabetes prevalence, it was the highest in men, all the way from 20 to 70, 74, where that's when it became about the same for females, and then at 75, 79,
And
with
this
the
is in
food.
the United States, is that right? Okay. Okay.
And now we'll talk about the industry analysis of
All
PepsiCo.
right.
This is the industry life cycle, the 5 different stages that is in with embryonic, growth, shakeout, mature, and decline. Next slide.
That is red.
Here is the PepsiCo's industry life cycle for beverages, with Cavita being in the embryonic stage, which is a slow growth, high prices. Then you have Life Order in the growth stage, which is a demanding that is expanding. In the shakeout stage is PepsiCo Max. It is slow growth, but is remaining a first-time buyer. The demand stops growing. The mature stage is Pepsi, and then which has reached a good stage where it's saturated. There's a decrease in threat to the competitors, and then you see PepsiCo Twist in its decline stage, where the growth decreases and the demand falls.
I wonder whether Pepsi, Diet Pepsi, or now, frankly, all the carbonated beverages have a problem, but I think the classic Pepsi, it's actually, the Coke calls it classic Coke, but the Pepsi with all the sugar in it is at the decline stage. And that maybe the Diet Pepsi and the sugar-free version may still be mature, but we've seen in the charts with the declining consumption of carbonated beverages that we would probably assume that the cola drinks are in a declining stage. They've certainly reached their peak and come down from there. You know, I kind of wonder just where Pepsi Cola is in its life cycle. And I suspect that there's a breakout between the most unhealthy version and the other category, that is to say the sugar-free version. I'm not sure about that, but I am pretty sure that colas generally have passed the peak and are moving into decline. And Coca-Cola, this is probably the right place for Coca-Cola, but for Pepsi-Cola, I have a feeling that they're now in the decline stage, and that some of those healthier drinks that we've talked about have moved further to the right.
This one is PepsiCo's industry life cycle for food, where embryonic is the smart food popcorn growth, the Tostitos scoops, especially with the new commercials you've seen for the Tostitos Frito-Lays with Super Bowl or NFL athletes. Then you've got the shakeout with the hummus, Frito-Lays being mature, and the Funyuns in the decline stage. Here is the PepsiCo's Porter's 5 forces for beverages. Here you can see USA, China, India, and Europe. USA and China at its highest average, with India with the lowest. The potential for more profits is in India than USA and China, because USA and China could be viewed as a threat due to their potential to decrease profits.
Well, the forces that push down profit are highest in the US and China because, among other things, as you've shown here, there are, the buyers have a lot more power. They have more options and so forth. Just because a country has strong forces that push profit down doesn't mean that we don't want to be there. Very often, those forces are strongest because those economies are strongest and the demand for the product is higher, so there's more competition. And we'll see some of that as we move through the other matrices here.
Here is PepsiCo's Porter's 5 forces with food. As you can see, USA has the highest average, with Europe as the lowest. And the potential for more profits is in Europe than USA, because USA is viewed as a threat because of the potential for decreased profits. Here you see the biggest drink companies, top 10 by revenue in 2019, with PepsiCo being ranked number 4 with $30.8 billion based here in the United States. Examples of their products such as Pepsi, Mountain Dew, and Aquafina. But you see as ranked number 1 is Anheuser-Busch with $52.3 billion, but they are based in Belgium. With Coca-Cola, which is PepsiCo's one of their top rivals, as ranked number 2 with $37.3 billion. Next. Here is sales of the leading snack and bakery companies in the United States in 2019. And you can see PepsiCo is second with $64.7 billion, right under Nestle, who is $90.8 billion. And you see Mondelez is under PepsiCo with 25.9. You'll also see Kellogg and Campbell Soup, and Campbell Soup all the way at $8.7 billion. Here is the cage analysis of PepsiCo with China, India, Europe, Russia, and Mexico, where you see China and India has the highest entry barriers, where Mexico and Europe has the lowest.
Yeah, so this is a cage analysis, and it's not of PepsiCo, is it? It simply is a measure of entry barriers. And you know, PepsiCo has to deal with them, Coke has to deal with them. Any company that wants to break into one of these countries or grow within one of those countries, and if it's an international company, if it's based in another country, then it's got to deal with these forces. And these forces will make it difficult either to break into the country or to grow sales. So what are we seeing here? That in China, according to your analysis, it's harder to grow than for a U.S. company to grow. Remember, the U.S. company, yeah, from U.S. to these different countries, it's harder for the U.S. to grow in China, for a U.S. company to grow in China than it is in India, but not much. And it's a lot easier to move into Europe. Now that makes sense, doesn't it? And so forth. And of course, Mexico is our neighbor to the south. And that makes sense too. So this table makes sense just when we look at it. But it does suggest, according to your analysis anyway, that it's pretty tough for an American company to get into China. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Here is Porter's diamond model for USA, China, Europe, Brazil, Mexico, and India. As you can see, USA has the highest average because the factor condition, demand condition, related and supporting industries are high, but rivalry is low because there's not a lot of rivalries in the US. China and India have the highest in rivalry. They are both competing to become number 1. Just like Dr. Rooney has told us, China is the growth market of the present, but India is the growth market of the future.
Thank you very much, Tiffany, for saying that.
Yes.
Okay.
This is PepsiCo's India beverages and snack sales. Because of the coronavirus, PepsiCo India's beverages and snacks fell double digits. 12-week period ended in June of 13. But as you can see in the beverage area within Africa, Middle East, and South Asia regions, India, Pakistan, Nigeria, and Middle East, they all declined. There was a decline in the negative impact of volume performance for Coca-Cola with the beverages because of the COVID as well. There was a decline in consumer demand. In the snack volumes, though, there was a growth in the Middle East and Pakistan, as well as South Africa, but there was a decline in India.
I changed your title here. I changed it on a couple of drafts too, but I guess those changes didn't get through. But we've got more than India on this slide, don't we?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Who's doing finance?
That's me.
All right.
All right. So we're going to move into some financial trends over a 10-year period here. Still looking at the same elements of sales, operating profit margin, ROI, ROE, long-term debt, shareholder equity, invested capital, and leverage. Next slide. All right. First four here just show the trend of sales, operating profit margin, ROI, and ROE over the last 10 years. Sales is increasing. Operating profit margin has rebounded after decreasing for a few years. Next slide. PepsiCo has invested heavily in marketing and advertising. ROI has been stable, which means PepsiCo's investment strategies have been good over a long period of time. And ROE is elevated due to PepsiCo's willingness to use debt to finance its assets, which impacts leverage as well. Next slide, please. All right, here's four more trends. The last four: long-term debt, shareholder equity, invested capital, and leverage. Long-term debt is increasing for now. It's actually expected to go on the decline. We'll look at that shortly.
Why does equity decline? Equity's really dropped. I believe that's a share buyback program.
Yes, there was a share buyback program during that period. I think that's on the next slide, maybe.
Okay. But leverage sure has gone up. I know you're not too concerned about it because Pepsi's healthy from a cash flow perspective, and the cost of its debt is low because interest rates are low. But when we get leverage up at that level, that's something that we can't look past. It's an issue.
That's right. Speaking of leverage, it is a measure of risk, taking into consideration long-term debt, invested capital. It is increasing due to the increase in long-term debt. It is an accepted level of risk currently. It has used debt to grow the company.
Are you talking? We can't hear you.
Yeah, I'm talking.
It doesn't look like your mute is on, but when you say anything, we cannot hear you. Can any of you hear Jeremy when he's speaking?
I can.
You can?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, just barely.
Okay. All right. We talked about interest rates and its impact on leverage. Record low interest rates. PepsiCo can finance its assets without putting the firm in too much financial distress. Next slide, please. All right, this is a comparison, again, with Coca-Cola and Mondelez in terms of sales. Over the past 10 years, obviously we're doing really well. Being a combined company of snacks and beverages definitely helps. And the good news for PepsiCo is that the forecast is positive for sales. So we should see an even more increase over the next few years. All right, next slide. There's a lot that leads to being a sales leader. It's got a global presence. Its brand is global. It customizes its product offerings in different geographic locations depending on the consumer patterns and consumer behaviors. It offers, like we talked about, it offers its options in both categories in snacks and beverages. All right. So here we see operating profit margin. PepsiCo kind of falls in between Mondelez. It's a little bit better than Mondelez, but not as good as Coca-Cola in terms of profit margin. Next slide. And there's a reason for that. The cost of producing snack foods is a lot higher than the cost of manufacturing and distributing beverages. And that hurts your operating margin.
I've lost your sound again.
What about now? Are we good?
I'm not sure what the reason is, but I can see when you're talking and I don't want to hold it up. So just go ahead, but flip your, do something like this to tell me to flip your slide.
Okay. All right. Here, let me hit this way. Okay. All right, so we talked about the cost of producing snack foods, and that eats into the operating profit margin for Pepsi compared to Coca-Cola. All right, next slide. All right, so here we have return on invested capital. Again, PepsiCo's kind of in between. It's been up and down between Coca-Cola and Mondelez. We'll talk about why. Can everybody else hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Are you there?
I'm good.
There, and I hear you now.
Okay.
I don't know what the problem was. I'm sorry. Do you
No
want
problem.
slide?
Yes, sir. Next slide.
Okay.
PepsiCo trailed Coca-Cola. We talked about it a little earlier in the beginning of the last decade, but it's made a push and is getting a better return on invested capital. It's invested in data analytics, and improved its automation capabilities in its manufacturing facilities. It's gaining an insight to consumer behavior, improving its cycle times in manufacturing facilities. It's becoming innovative in tailoring its ads and products based on consumer behavior and location and geographic area. And it's beginning to create consumer relationships through e-commerce, which is an increasing impactful area of business. Next slide. All right, here again, we see leverage, and our leverage right now is higher than rivals are. And we talked about why that is. Next slide. All right. So we are operating with a high leverage value, brand strength, global presence, wide product range allows us to make a good revenue, annual revenue to pay back all of our debt to creditors. Borrowing has allowed PepsiCo to enter into acquisitions of other companies that have improved its strength in both the market and its financial position. Frito-Lay in particular is extremely productive, and product diversification continues to positively impact the overall financial strength of the company. All right. Here we just have some strengths and weaknesses, financial drivers, if you will. Strengths for PepsiCo, we talked about it being a global brand, superb supply chain management, we talked about controlling inventory, its presence worldwide. Weaknesses, it's dependent on food and beverages only. There's not a, it doesn't make music or build bicycles. It's dependent on the food and beverage company or the food and beverage industry. And then, of course, there's always risk when developing new products. They might not succeed, and that can always have a financial impact on a business.
So what is a critical success factor in this industry then? Based on your last point, it's the ability to identify and develop new products that are successful.
That's right.
And that there's a lot that is involved in that. And it begins with market research, demographic research, what they call psychographics to figure out, what it is that makes people, attracted to things. And then the research and development, those test kitchens and so forth. It's quite a process, and it's a very refined one. And what makes PepsiCo remarkable is that it is so good at that. And it's for that reason that Jeremy makes his point. Even with its high leverage, PepsiCo can rarely stubs its toe. And when it brings out these new products, it has the luxury of charging a higher price than it's going to when the product gets older. When the product is new and interesting, people will pay a little higher price to get it. And so although it costs a bit to develop these products, those new products tend to generate higher profit margins as well.
Here's PepsiCo's BCG matrix, such as the dogs, cash cows, stars, question marks, with question marks being the Diet Pepsi, the stars being the Pepsi, Aquafina, Gatorade, and cash cows being Frito-Lays. Surprisingly,
I'm just offended at the way you're talking about my client.
I'm sorry. And here, and dogs, it doesn't show on the graph, but there's not really any PepsiCo products that could fall in the dog category. But there are like Pepsi Real Sugar and Mountain Mary Mashup, which are examples of seasonal and experimental products that could fall under the dog category.
All right, so we'll head into our one of the final areas of our slides here, talking about goals and financial forecasts and what the future could look like for PepsiCo in terms of sales and markets. So next slide, please. All right, we'll start out with a goals hierarchy. With the levels being acceptable risks, superior financial results, favorable market position, and long-term growth. And for both the snack food industry or element of PepsiCo and the beverage side of PepsiCo would be considered in the long-term growth element of the goals hierarchy. And although you'd never forget about the other levels, the risk involved, the financial results. It's not like those aren't important, because you have to have those in order to achieve long-term growth or be at that level in the goals hierarchy. Specifically for the beverage industry, it's really evolved and is continuing to evolve as consumers drink less carbonated sodas and are going more for water and flavored waters and juices and things that are just fall into the better and good for you categories. So Pepsi's done a good job of helping its product line to evolve as consumer behaviors have changed, and that has allowed it to remain in the long-term growth element of the goals hierarchy.
Let me give you just a little bit of help here.
Okay.
Remember that the goals hierarchy is meant to clarify priorities for strategy and to identify where the highest priorities of goals lie. And I think that based upon your discussion of leverage being less threatening than it otherwise might be, you can make your case here pretty well. You've got these products at the long-term goal growth level, but that doesn't mean, as you just said, that we forget about market position or good financial results or even risk. And so we may establish goals or strategic objectives to improve our market position, for instance. But our greatest concern now is to deal with that issue that you were just talking about. You know, there's been a shift in consumer preference for beverages. So once you're at this level, how do you stay on top? You know, how do you continue to grow beyond your present level when you've already done so well? And of course, Mrs. Newye figured it out several years ago. She decided to let Coca-Cola have that segment of the market that is declining. Let them have it. Let them have a larger share of the sugary carbonated beverages, because we know its line is declining. But the consumption of healthy drinks, of non-carbonated beverages and bottled water, and healthy drinks like Kavita, it's going up. So Mrs. Newye decided that what they wanted to do was ride that train, and in order to maintain its position of long-term growth. Coke has decided to hold on to its high share and even increase its share of carbonated beverages. So they're holding on tight to a sinking ship, right? And Mrs. Newye says, fine, you can have it. Way to go, Coke. Keep on holding on to that sinking ship. We're for you, Coke. Meanwhile, we're going to go off where, you know, things are a little better, you know. And so the jury has come in with its verdict. Mrs. Newye was right and Coke was not.
All right, so here we're talking about market share in terms of beverages and snacks in different locations, and PepsiCo's ranking in those locations. It currently ranks at number 2 in the United States, China, India, Europe, and Russia. However, with the in the snack side of the market share, it actually ranks first, except for in China. Next.
Okay.
Talked about being number 2 in the United States and that being okay with PepsiCo leadership. They understand that carbonated beverages and their consumption is on the decline, and PepsiCo's invested in brands that are better for you. However, it would like to see its ranking climb up to number 1 in other geographic areas. For snacks, Frito-Lay really dominates the market. They do a good job of customizing its snack products based on local preferences. And it is currently spending a lot of time and money in China, India, and Russia. Okay, so here we get into our financial performance and goals and forecasts into the year 2024 for those same financial ratios we looked at earlier. Next slide. All right, so this table shows a change from 2019 to 2024 based on the expected or goal dollar change or percentage change over the next few years. And you'll see in some of these categories that there's a significant change, but with the investment and global expansion that we believe those changes are tangible. All right, next slide.
Okay, since I complimented Patrick, I guess I better compliment you too. This is a really good exhibit. Notice that for an increase in sales of 19%, we got a whopping increase in shareholders' equity of 35%. That's pretty doggone good. In addition to which, we finally satisfied the strategic planner in the crowd and got the leverage down to a more breathable level. So this is a smiling exhibit as far as I'm concerned.
All right, so some positive trends here. We see sales and forecasted expected to just continue to increase into 2024. Operating profit margin is kind of stabilizing over the next few years. There's reasons for that. We'll get into that. Next slide, please.
22% is not an unfriendly operating margin.
That's true.
When I was VP of corporate planning at Philips, if we had 22% operating margins, we would have had a corporate holiday. We never got anything like that.
All right, so return on invested capital expected to continue to increase, which is good for everybody who has a stake in PepsiCo, and the ROE is pretty stable from now and through the next few years.
And pretty high.
Yes, it is.
High. Those are the rates of growth in shareholders' equity. The way you grow equity is by adding net income to it. So this fraction is net income divided by the opening shareholders' equity. It's a rate of growth in shareholders' equity before we sell stock or pay dividends. And it's almost too much to believe to have that kind of growth rate in shareholders' equity. But, and of course, this is a value line forecast. So there's a lot of smart people who think that this is the way it's going to be. Frankly, if you're an investor in common stock, that's very interesting.
All right, so we get into long-term debt, and good news for PepsiCo's that's projected to decrease over the next few years. And for shareholders, it's also good news. It's larger shareholder equity over the next few years. Next slide. Invested capital is going to stabilize based on the two elements that feed into figuring out invested capital. Leverage is expected to decline as long-term debt decreases over the next few years. All right, so sales could be $80 billion by 2024. Profit margin will remain level as investments are made in product development and future acquisitions. The sales improvement will lead to a improved ROI. ROI is expected to stabilize. Improvement in global economies and expanded business will decrease long-term debt and improve shareholder equity over the next few years. And like we talked about, leverage expected to decrease, which is a good thing for PepsiCo through 2024.
Well, now we get to see how Pepsi wins or loses. And their ultimate goal is to win competitively. We do have some generic strategy objectives, and PepsiCo both focuses on least cost and differentiation. They focus on lowering production costs to pass savings on to the consumer by automating production processes, and they also offer promotional products to consumers. They also practice differentiation, as we've seen, as a strategy. It started in the 1960s by acquiring Frito-Lay. There's a movement today away from sugary carbonated drinks. So they're offering new drink choices. And during Newey's time as CEO, her strategy was to move the company into healthier product offerings. And today we are moving also into a new differentiation of sleep aid called Drift Wheel. Next slide, please.
Okay. Just before we move on to this chart, just a real quick comment. Which do you think is most important for PepsiCo strategically? Low cost
Differentiation.
or different? Would you please expand on that point? Okay, because I think it's fundamental to the case. Okay, a company like PepsiCo has to have that primarily in its mind. Just go ahead and say it for me.
Well, consumers' tastes are always changing, so we have to move to these new markets to remain competitive.
Yeah,
That's the best reason.
In a competitive market, when you're selling consumer products, you've got to differentiate your product from the customer. You know, nobody is going to beat Sam's Club at making Sam's Choice, right? And these private label products, which are always going to be out there at a low cost. And grocery stores and various companies are always going to have a quote low cost product. That's not where PepsiCo goes. Where PepsiCo goes is to excite you and offer you something that makes you want to get it because it's fun for you or good for you or better for you. But that's what they're selling, is a differentiated product rather than a low cost product. As you say, they've got to keep their costs down or it won't be affordable. But their number one priority is to differentiate. Whoops.
And there are some capabilities available to PepsiCo. Next slide, please. They have a global presence in over 200 countries, and they also are promoting into emerging economies. Next slide, please. And here's some examples of the global presence. We have, they have flavored a drink specifically for China. I don't know how you say this, the osmanthus flour, to satisfy the taste of Chinese consumers. They've also, in Russia, they have a specific flavored bread snack. I'm not going to pronounce that either. I think it's Urus team. And also Winbildan, the largest supplier of Europe's dairy products.
I've never understood. I've been to Russia, and of course, I've studied PepsiCo pretty intensively. I got to tell you, I have no idea why or what this mascot of Wimbledon's is meant to connote, but I don't know about you. I'm sure the Russians love it. I think it looks sort of silly.
Next slide, please.
I'm trying. Okay.
And we also have another capability of a global distribution network. They have direct store delivery, which has always worked well for PepsiCo. And they are starting to utilize electric trucks in some areas. They moved to consumer warehouses and also to third-party distributor networks. And they also have 300 manufacturing and processing bottling plants worldwide. Next slide. Research and development is another capability. They sustain their supply chain by optimizing crop yields, trying to improve water usage in manufacturing facilities worldwide and recyclable packaging. They also do research and development to satisfy local tastes and preferences. Next slide, please.
Wow.
Yeah, marketing. Pepsi
Wow.
spent 2.4 billion on advertising and 4.1 billion on marketing in 2018. And we see our little mascot here.
The
Next.
if you would have done this a few years ago, instead of Beyonce, it would have been Michael Jackson doing the moonwalk. That's when I was there. This is a little after my time. Damn. Sorry I missed it. These people would visit PepsiCo's headquarters, you know, and walk around and meet everybody. And of course, we'd all get real excited. And I'm afraid I missed this.
I
Yep.
wasn't sure whether to use that picture or not, but anyway.
Oh, no, you were just fine.
Next slide.
Here are the different PepsiCo advertising strategies that they have used. Everything from the different jingles, such as the nickel nickel jingle that Dr. Rooney sung for us earlier, which they renamed Pepsi-Cola Hits the Spot back in the 1940s. Then the Michael Jackson with the moonwalk and the new generation, even using his image on the Pepsi cans. Then you've got the billboards and the trucks advertising Pepsi's name and product. You've got Brooke Shields in the commercials advertising by drinking Pepsi, as well as posters with the slogan, "Now it's Pepsi for those who think young." Next slide.
And we have another capability, a large customer base, a complex network of suppliers and distributors worldwide, a well-recognized brand, and also repeat customers who like the brands, and offering quality products to these market segments. Next slide. Horizontal integration, and we're growing our market share through acquisitions, and PepsiCo has been noted for that in our research. It strengthens the company's position in the industry. It's designed to grow the company. It increases product differentiation and gain economies of scale and reduce competition. Next slide. And we have some examples of horizontal acquisition. Quaker Oats through diversification, and also Pioneer Foods in South Africa.
Yeah. And when we're talking diversification, what kind of diversification is Quaker Oats?
It's more of a healthier type food.
It's a related diversification, right?
Right.
It's related because it's purchased in the same grocery stores that Frito-Lay and PepsiCo products are sold in. And I think you're going to show us some examples of the alternative unrelated diversification that represented some of the absolutely insane thinking that was going on.
Yes.
When I was there.
And we're going to talk about vertical integration for a minute first. They have purchased two of their largest bottlers, Pepsi Bottling Group and Pepsi America. And for PepsiCo to own its own bottling companies, it allows the company to introduce new products quickly while adjusting to the ever-changing consumer preferences. And also it streamlines the supply chain. And we may see more of that in the future, I'm not sure.
That was done when I was there, and the reason for it was that there were some new flavors coming in. Dr. Pepper, trying to remember the other one. But lo and behold, these new flavors were getting into the Pepsi-Cola bottlers. And we were afraid that eventually our Pepsi-Cola bottlers were going to start bottling Coke too, if this thing got out of hand. And so we bought our two biggest bottlers. Frankly, we bought more than those in order to let it be known that if need be, we'd bring them all in-house. And essentially, we shut off that trend. But when we did it, you're right, that was vertical integration.
And this is a strange one, the unrelated diversification strategy. And this one really shocked me. there were 3 companies specifically: Lee, Way Motor Freight, North American Van Lines, and Wilson Sporting Goods, which I did not realize that.
It's all true. It's crazy. Yeah, I noticed that in your slides, you didn't make too much of the snack of the fast food chains.
No, they shocked me enough.
Okay, well, just for those of you who I think it's mentioned in a slide here, but very briefly, PepsiCo, and this started when I was there also, bought Pizza Hut. I think that's the one they bought when I was there. And then came Kentucky Fried Chicken, and then Taco Bell. Lo and behold, those companies competed with all the other fast food companies that at the time were buying Pepsi-Cola. But when they found out that PepsiCo was their competitor, they threw us out, which made us think that maybe we'd better get out of the fast food business because we were competing with our customers. It was one of the classic blunders in management, that you would actually go into competition with your customers, and our customers were all those restaurants that were buying our product.
And related diversification strategy with Pioneer Foods, of course, and now recently Rockstar Energy Drinks, moving into that new market.
This is the top global beverage brands of PepsiCo, such as Pepsi, Mountain Dew, Tropicana, Aquafina, Brisk, Lorendia, even Gatorade. Next slide.
I know something about you, Tiffany, that I did not know before I met you.
What is that?
Your favorite color is red. By the way, what color are you wearing right now?
Pink.
Okay, it's a red. Well,
So the Ansoff matrix, we're looking at the past for PepsiCo, the products for existing products, existing market segment for market penetration. This is a way to focus. They focus on how to sell these products. They do this through media and advertising. In the past, it was through newspapers, word of mouth, advertising using celebrities, billboards, the product design, offered package deals for new products in existing market segments. Product development was through Mountain Dew, Diet Pepsi, Pepsi Raw, Caleb's Cola. So market development, existing products, new market segments, trying to find new markets, segments for them. Diet Pepsi, this was mainly marketed towards women. You'll see most commercials and such with female in those. Pepsi Max is mainly marketed towards men. And PepsiCo entering into international markets in the past. Product proliferation, we've got the new products, new market segments. We've got Frito-Lay's, Taco Bell, Pizza Hut, KFC, Aquafina, Wimbledon, and Tropicana. Next slide, please.
The background from your computer really does come through. It makes it a little difficult to understand you. If maybe I can offer just a little help here. Market development, don't forget, if we're offering existing products in new markets, of course, PepsiCo's international moves would be, the sort of thing that we might want to put there, in addition to offering our existing products to new segments of the population. That's okay. but I think that, you know, it's here that we probably would also report the moves into Russia, for instance, with Windmill Dam. But over in product proliferation, Windmill Dam, as you have placed it, makes dairy products. And so here was PepsiCo going into a new market, Russia, and buying a company that sold dairy products into groceries, because not only did they get a new product, they got the vehicle to take all their existing products into those grocery stores too. So when I went to Russia, I saw Windmill Dam there, but I also saw a lot of Pepsi Cola and a lot of Frito-Lays, and they were being delivered by Windmill Dam. So you know, that's a classic illustration of why you would do a product proliferation. And in this case, as we've pointed out, we would prefer to do related diversification instead of those silly things like Taco Bell and North American van lines. That was new product for a new market also, but it made no sense at all. And this was when, for those of you who are interested in the history of American business, there was a time back in the 1980s when the fad was to form conglomerates. And the idea was that if you had a broad enough scope of products, then when one wasn't doing well, the other might be doing well, so that you could always have a positive trend in your sales and your profit. Turned out to be absolutely non-workable. But the reason that PepsiCo got into North American van lines and Taco Bell and Wilson Sporting Goods was because it was during this time when conglomerizing was all the rage, and it was just silly. It made no sense at all, but everybody else was doing it, so PepsiCo did it too. That's the truth. That's why they did it. Okay.
And we have Ansoff Matrix, the present. Again, we have media and advertising for the market penetration by using celebrities, and we have social media now, as well as product design, product development. We've got Driftwell, Life Water, seaweed products, market development. They aim to create a more global presence.
Right.
And product proliferation, more efficient and low cost bottling products. They acquired Bee and Cheery recently this year, as well as Rockstar Energy right here in April of this year as well.
I'll take your word for it that these new products are going into new markets. They would have to be doing that to be classified as product proliferation. And as most of you already know, another term for product proliferation that gets used in this exhibit often is diversification. You know, I wonder whether when I see new, efficient, low-cost bottling products, is that product development or is that really product proliferation? I have no idea what Bee and Cherry is. I saw your slide and I still don't understand it. In any event, I get the impression that these still may be product developments, anybody want to enlighten us on this, whether these are product development or product proliferation? Nobody? Okay. Yeah.
I know that Rockstar is an existing product.
Is it a beverage? It looks like it's a beverage.
Yes, it's an energy drink. Monster, Red Bull, it would be like in a competitor.
Okay, so then that's product development, right? It's a new
Right.
product for our existing markets.
Right.
Yeah, okay. What does Bee and Cherry do? I know you've got a slide that says so, but Is it a food or beverage product?
I believe that was food.
B and Cherry.
Mhm. Yeah, that one was food.
It's a food?
Right.
Okay, so that also could be product development. Um, I guess we beat this horse enough here. Okay. So here we're going to talk about these segments of the Ansoff matrix. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
So this is a little bit more into detail with the graphics. Market penetration, text emojis for social media, Super Bowl sponsorships, and then the 2-liter design change. Next slide, please.
This is a great slide. This is a great slide. I want to go pick up that little girl and hug her. She's cute stuff. But this is a very attractive slide.
Okay. Product development, develop more nutritious products, adding new flavors, increase the range of their products.
Again, just a great slide.
Thank you. Market development aims to be #1 in India, Russia, China, and then segment their products based on demographics. Next slide, please.
Okay.
And then product proliferation, acquired Wimbledon, and then the Starbucks, North American Coffee Partnership with Starbucks.
And B and Cherry is what? What is the B and Cherry product? I see it up here in the upper right-hand corner, but I can't read it.
Yeah.
What is B and Cherry? I guess it's a Chinese product that
Chinese.
it's fast food that comes to you through the internet. Is that right? It's delivered to you like Amazon, but it's snack foods. Is that true?
I believe so.
Yeah. Okay. So those would be to a new market for sure. So this could be product proliferation. Okay.
All right, next we're going to talk about, you know, how we're going to implement these strategies, how we're going to, expand our market and improve our financial results. We can go ahead with the next slide. So with major projects and programs, we want to be able to penetrate the market in developing countries. We talked a lot about India and China. We want to develop products that are better for you and good for you. Talked about the health, the turn towards more healthy products, improve efficiencies in processing and distribution to improve overall cost structure, and to continue to create new and innovative ways to market products using outlets that are out there, as well as the new and growing e-commerce.
Okay.
Here's one of the major products, the Pepsi bottling product. Because of COVID and more families staying home, they've decided to do a new design that is to come out for the 2-liter Pepsi products. It's easier to handle and pour. The new design has begun to roll out in Chicago, Minneapolis, St. Paul, Wisconsin, and soon to roll out nationwide in the future. Another one is Driftwell. Due to the stress impacting because of COVID, PepsiCo's decided to launch this new drink in December 2020, which is this month. The grocery stores, it should be distributed early next year. It's an enhanced water to help people relax and reduce stress, help them to fall asleep. And it's got ingredients in it that will help you to fall asleep, as well as daily dose of magnesium.
I can just see people drinking this in the office. Oh, well.
Okay. Another major project was PepsiCo websites. They've recently driven to the e-commerce channels with due to COVID. They've launched the direct-to-consumer websites, Pantry Shop and Snacks.com. This allows customers to access their favorite snacks and pantry food items from the safety of their own homes. Next slide. And then the Pepsi Challenge. This is an ongoing marketing promotion, basically where they set up something to where participants are blindfolded and taste test the products, Pepsi versus Coca-Cola, and they choose which one they prefer. And the results of the test drastically went towards Pepsi. Next slide, please.
This was a big deal. This happened when I was there, but they really did this. They ran tests to see if people preferred the taste of Pepsi versus Coke. And the tests turned out that people actually liked the taste of Pepsi better. Trying to remember who the CEO was. I think it was Roger Enrico, but whoever it was, when these tests were finished and the results came out, it really had a boost in Pepsi's market share. And Enrico, if that's who it was, declared a day of holiday for all employees of PepsiCo because it proved that Pepsi tasted better than Coke. And so he declared a national holiday, a worldwide holiday for PepsiCo employees the day this result came out.
Here is the PepsiCo purchase of China's B & Cherry company, valued at $705 million. It offers snacks online, especially during COVID, helps to decrease the spread of the virus with less contact, and Pepsi has become China's leading consumer-centric food and beverage company. B & Cherry has it sells various snacks online, such as dry fruits and nuts. PepsiCo's India and COVID, they've committed to 25,000 COVID testing kits, providing over 5 million meals to help families that are impacted by the COVID. They are even part of the global program Help Meals, Give Hope, and partnering with Smile Foundation and so forth. This is Ravi Japuria, India's Cola King. He presides over $1.7 billion revenue drinks and foods with the RJ Corporation. His flagship is Beverages, which is one of PepsiCo's biggest bottlers outside the U.S. This is PepsiCo products in India, the beverages. Some you will see that you will also see in the United States, such as Pepsi and Mountain Dew, but in India, you will also see like Slice, Duke, Stings, energy drinks, and even Aquafina. PepsiCo products in India, food-wise, you'll see Lay's, Cheetos, Doritos, Quaker, Uncle Chips, and Kurkuri.
Right, Kurkuri. And you're going to tell us more about Kurkuri, aren't you?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Kurkuri. Beginning in 1999 is when PepsiCo launched the product, and it is developed in India. It's a Hindi word meaning crunchy and is a popcorn product type. In 2013, PepsiCo in Canada began producing Kurkuri.
Yeah, the people in India are very proud of this because they don't have a research and development laboratory in India. At least they didn't at that time. And but they're just very gung-ho Pepsi-Cola and Frito. And so they thought that there was a kind of a product that people in India like. And the employees of PepsiCo India just went out and developed this thing by themselves, got it packaged, and it took off like a rocket. And it's extremely popular. And they did it, and they love to rub that in the nose of the people back at headquarters, because they did it completely without the assistance of the folks back in the PepsiCo headquarters. They developed it by themselves, and it's a tremendous success.
And PepsiCo and seaweed. These products using carrageenan. It's a red light coloring that is cultivated from seaweed and is used in natural products, especially in India.
Yeah.
All right, so we're moving on to the skills and competencies that will allow and help PepsiCo to implement these strategies. There's sophisticated data analytics that they have developed that will help improve distribution, improve inventory levels, and help understand consumer patterns for different geographic areas. We've talked a lot about research and development, new product development, the bottlers and distribution centers and their fleet of trucks and different mobiles used to deliver products. And it's very focused marketing and advertising strategies. All right, organizational structure. The company's divided into 7 global divisions. A lot of the sales and production does take place in the United States. But these 7 divisions and their locations and their focus, they allow for, a focus on local consumer behaviors and the development and improving products and processes that match the needs for each region. This focus allows for decreased cost structure and realization of scale economies.
What is that product in the picture?
That is, oh, I've lost the word.
Gazpacho.
Yes, yes.
That is gazpacho.
Yes.
Which is a cold soup.
Yeah, cold
It is
soup.
very popular in Europe. We don't have it very much in the United States, but when I was in Europe, I got hooked on this stuff. And it turns out that Mrs. Newye also was hooked on it. And it's good. It's vegetable soup, but it's cold. And of course, it's not made like our hot vegetable soup. But if you ever get a chance to try gazpacho, don't turn it down. It's pretty good stuff. What a terrible picture of Mrs. Newye.
I'm sorry.
Not only that, here, let me see if I can help. She doesn't look like that. That's a little better.
All right.
She's not quite that out here. But she looks so unhappy.
It's a serious business face.
Okay.
She was a CEO.
That's a good
executive.
comeback. That was a great answer.
Oh, yeah.
A serious business.
She was working on expanding operations globally.
Yes, sir. You're right.
She had a big impact on acquisitions and movement internationally, involved with the acquisition of Tropicana, with the merge with Quaker Oats, the acquisition of Gatorade, a huge advocate for moving into more nutritious products, really got the company involved in sustainability practices, and is a key in the penetration of the market in India.
Ramon LaGuardia came after her. He's the current CEO of PepsiCo since October of 2018. He's chairman of the board since February of 2019. He focuses on PepsiCo's Faster, Stronger, Better. He's the head of the PepsiCo strategy beyond the bottle. It's more flavors of beverages coming in, sustainable packaging, and increasing the growth of the future with PepsiCo, and increasing performance and competitive advantage.
He's from Spain, as you might have guessed from his name, and he was also president of PepsiCo's 2 different international divisions. And so this says to us that the board of directors kind of like the idea of Mrs. Newey, who of course was from India, and how she took PepsiCo international in such a major way. She was, you remember, responsible for doing the Wimbledon acquisition. And so here is LaGuardia moving in the same direction. So what this says is that the directors realize that PepsiCo's growth opportunities are not in North America, are they? But they're international, and they're probably Oriental. But in any event, this is a very international guy.
All right, so just wrapping up our presentation, in terms of financial and market, PepsiCo's future looks bright, but it is going to depend heavily on the impact of the COVID pandemic and leadership's ability to penetrate these emerging markets we're talking about. Especially in India, and what happens economically in Russia. Continued development and marketing of products that are better for you to push for a more nutritious product line. Foreign economic growth and political stability, specifically in Russia, whose market for dairy could move and impact PepsiCo not only within Russia, but outside of Russia. Its continued focus on being customer-centered, and its investment in technology that'll help improve processes and lower production costs, and continued business relationships with local firms. We talked a lot about acquisitions that take place in a lot of times in foreign countries, and understanding the local tastes and behaviors of those in certain geographic areas.
I really love your last bullet. I think this is the last slide, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, your last bullet is perceptive. You know, one of the things that PepsiCo does, at least it did when I was there, and I'm sure they still do, is that they really spend a lot of time going out talking to managers of grocery stores and you know, convenience stores and such. But you know, they get into the local market partly to gain acceptance for the company and its product, its delivery guys if they're Frito-Lay, or their bottlers guys if it's Pepsi-Cola. So they want to promote acceptance of the product and the people from PepsiCo. But they also want to know just what's going on in those local markets. And if they build those relationships with the local firms, they can do that. The guy in the office across from me in New York City, I'll never forget him. His name was Merle Hagen. And Merle really understood people. Guy was a psychologist and an MBA, and he just spent a lot of time doing research of people, both consumers and operators of grocery stores and such. And he had a lot of, you know, an organization working with him. And boy, they were good at what they did. And I think that very often we lose sight of just how much is involved. You know, very successful consumer products companies just don't make a nice product and expect everybody's just going to love it. In the case of an outfit like PepsiCo or another big company like theirs, they engineer this stuff. They plan it, and the proof of the pudding is in the eating. They've been very successful. Well, we've gone for 2.5 hours after a late start. I don't know about you, but pretty soon I'm going to the bathroom. But I just want to thank you for doing a good job. I sent a note to this team earlier telling them that I thought that this was just an excellent analysis of PepsiCo because it's so comprehensive. Proof of which is it took 2.5 hours to present it. But it's very comprehensive. It covers all the bases. And boy, did you guys do great graphics. I mean, it's fun to look at your slides. So I want to just compliment you with everybody else hearing it, so rather than just my note to you. So everyone knows that I think you did just a super job. Congratulations to your team. I want to congratulate somebody else now. Sandra Gunderson has stayed in this entire presentation. And boy, have you got staying power.
I went once to go potty. My bladder's the size of a pea.
You can go.
I already did.
Oh, you already did. Okay, thank God for that. But aside from that, you know, I think you've just really demonstrated perseverance, and thank you for staying in the meeting and attending to this, because it looks like Chuck Gard may have been there, but we don't see his pictures, so we don't know whether he was with us all the time or not. But we know you were here with us all the time, Sandra. So thank you for coming on the ride with us.
You're welcome.
Okay, folks, I guess we'll call that a halt. And again, thank you. Let me just get this thing so I can turn off the recorder at the right time. But thank you all very much for doing such a great job and educating us about PepsiCo. Take care.